Hello, APUSH people. Okay, trying to get started. I was trying a little music there. It didn't really work here, but just trying to get a little music going to begin. Hello, how you doing there, Zara and Leona and Omar? Can you hear the music okay? Does it sound goofy? This is Ben Sound. If anybody has ever heard of that, Ben Sound is like a royalty-free music, and I use it. I do the schools like news and stuff like that too. And nice little hello, nice little way. I decided I would try to get it started with a little bit of music. I don't know, but okay. Seeing so lost in this chapter, well, hopefully we can get all set here. I would say that, a lot of this is from chapter 3 and 4. And I would say that, that's really getting to the meat. A lot of it depends upon obviously what chapter or what book you're on. Who's on the American Pageant? How many people are on that one? That used to be like at one time probably, maybe 70%, 80% of students probably at one time. Now a lot of people aren't even really using a full textbook anymore. But it's definitely going to be from the earlier chapters here of your book there, somewhere around 2, 3, 4. And so we're going to be covering a lot of stuff today. So hopefully you hear me okay. And, I tried to throw a couple interesting things in as we go along here. So we're going to be taking a look at comparing and contrasting colonial America. Okay. And in terms of it, we want to make sure that you follow Fiveable here on Twitter or Instagram. There's a YouTube channel, all of that. How long is this going to be? I would say we're probably going to be about 35 minutes or so. Okay. Somewhere around that, maybe 40 minutes. Depends. There are a lot of things with it. So this is really one of the big ones here. So we're basically looking at, we'll kind of go into all of that in 1 second here. So I don't want to get ahead of it here. I'll kind of explain exactly what's going on here. First of all, this is a little bit about me. Okay. I'm in my 20th year. I've been teaching APUSH for a long time here. Okay, some of the books there, some of the ones, Fraser's book there, there's a whole bunch of different ones now. It's not as many people using American Pageant as it used to be. I'd probably still say probably about 50%. A lot of people just using that AMSCO, which, is a great resource, but I'm not 100% sure if it's a textbook really, but we'll talk about that later on. I have one right here. So, I definitely, I have the 2016 here, so definitely use it a lot, but I don't know if it's really that great of a text, let's say. We'll talk about it later on here. I'm in my 20th year of teaching here, and so I've been teaching APUSH for about 17 years now at this point. I'm also an English teacher, so I do a lot on the writing, and we spend a lot of time on both writing and content, and I try to keep those expectations pretty high. In terms of what we are going to be seeing today, we are going to be reviewing kind of all the Age of Exploration. Then we're going to be kind of taking a look at period 2 in context. Then we're going to take a look at really our main learning target today, which is explain how and why environmental and other factors shape the development and expansion of various British colonies and developed and expanded from 1607 to 1754. Themes. I don't know what people are using for themes. Hello there, Will. I know that different people are using different things. In the past, I've used magpies. I have used bagpipe. I've used quite a few different ones. This year we are doing hello, Hiba. Today we are going to be using AP gamers when we talk of things. It's just another one of the many, acronyms you can come up with for the, for the learning targets here, or I'm sorry, for the themes. Looking at the themes we're going to be dealing with today: regional and American culture, and then geography and environment, I would say, will be the two themes we're going to be spending a lot of time with here. Okay, so hopefully we can get into all these things here. This is pretty long here, so I'm going to try to go through things relatively quickly here. All right, let's take a look here. A couple people said that they were lost here, so I don't know how far people are, obviously. In terms of my class, we are in the middle of our chapter 4, which is going to be dealing with a lot of northern colonies and things like that. But let's take a look here and see if anybody can start us off here with this. So last year, the short answer question was, I kind of paraphrased it here so that, we can kind of do this without breaking any copyrights here. But basically, they were looking for one similarity, one difference, and then one reason why they are different. So let's start off with the first place here. Let's start off with one similarity. So I want you to give me, now what they were just looking at was they were just looking at Chesapeake and the New England colonies. Today we are going to be focusing on 3. We're going to be taking a look at the Chesapeake, and really we're going to go throughout the South. Then we're going to look at the New England colonies, and then the middle colonies. So we're going to be doing all of those today. So last year's short answer question was just looking at the similarities, differences, and reason why they were different of the Chesapeake colonies and New England. Okay, so who can kind of help us with this? Do you want to try? Let's see some similarities here. Okay, Hannah with the religious and economic purposes. Okay, all right. The economic purposes, in terms of it, obviously money drove in Chesapeake, definitely, and they're risking literally life and limb for money. And religious was probably the bigger draw, definitely, in New England. Good. They used indentured servitude. Very good. Many indentured servants were part of it. So in terms of that, was a similarity in both, definitely. Both were settled by British. The majority of the people were British. There's no doubt about it. Probably a little bit more diversity in the Chesapeake region. Max, you haven't learned anything about this yet. We're going to be talking about it, and you'll be kind of ahead of the curve a little bit, which is a good place to be with APUSH, definitely. Okay, taking a look here. Peyton's talking about the Patriots. Eventually, eventually we're going to start to develop this true sense of identity here. And so quite a few people haven't gotten to it. So let's, my class, we're kind of right in there right now. So we're going to be taking a look at some of the similarities. The similarities, we're going to go to the next slide here. The similarities, I gave you a lot here, and we're going to be taking a look at them, and then we're going to take a look at them again later on here. But let's take a look at the similarities here. So both are into agriculture, right? A lot of farming, right? So we're going to have a lot of farming at that time. We're going to have some cooperation with the Native Americans. This was a complex and strange relationship in many ways here. There is cooperation. They could not have existed. Jamestown nor Plymouth would have ever existed if it wasn't for some help of the native, some help from the Native Americans, I should say. All 3 had some form of indentured servitude. Again, we're going to be looking at the South, New England, and the middle colonies. Okay, that's what we're going to be taking a look at today. They are all going to have dependence on trade, which is going to be very important, and they're all going to have pulling factors to come here. Whether we are talking about religion in New England or if we're talking about land and money opportunities in the Chesapeake. Okay. Okay, so when we're talking about the Chesapeake region, okay, good, Leona. What we're talking about there is we're talking about Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, all that area around the Chesapeake Bay. Really, normally most people look at Maryland South as the South. And then the middle colonies, a lot of times Delaware, New Jersey, New York, we'll go over exactly what they are. But Virginia, Maryland, and then really you could probably go into North Carolina, and some other would be kind of considered the Chesapeake. Differences here: Chesapeake, slavery; South, greater disparity between rich and poor, and we're going to explain why that is. North is going to be a mixed economy, a lot more economic diversity. South, large plantations, higher population in the north. North is more about religion, is what it's more about. They went over, especially when you're talking about the Pilgrims. So Puritans are people who want to purify the church. Some wanted to stay with the church. Other ones wanted to separate. The Pilgrims were one of these separatist groups. They actually lived in Holland for a while. Their kids, as the textbook calls it, became Dutchified. And so they wanted a place where they could be more along the lines of English, but they could practice their religion freely. So we'll be taking a look at that as well. New England, if you were going to open up a Chuck E. Cheese, you'd probably do it in the north there, because it's much more family oriented. Okay, except for they didn't really play, so they probably would be empty, because it would be probably considered some form of sin. So so maybe you wouldn't want to open up your Chuck E. Cheese there, but there definitely family life is a big part there. We're going to be taking a look at self-government and some changes. The North had a town hall. The South, in Virginia, had the House of Burgesses, definitely. And then reasons for the differences. Oh, we have so many reasons for the differences. Part of it is geography and climate. Part of it is labor demands. Part of it is unequal land distribution. In terms of blue laws, good question here. We will talk about blue laws. I would say that, so blue laws are kind of religious-oriented laws. We still have some today, right, Zara? Do you have any in mind even today? We still have some blue laws. Or anybody else who would like to do that. What can't you do in many states on a Sunday, for instance? Anybody? Okay, go to work, buy alcohol. Yeah, in where I went to college, there was no buying of alcohol on Sundays, except for one Sunday. Anybody want to guess what that was? One Sunday, the people of the town of Macomb, which is Western Illinois. No, not Easter, not Easter. One Sunday. A lot of people have parties and different things around that. There we go, the Super Bowl. All right, so blue laws. In Illinois, you can't buy a car. I'm not sure about in all states on that one. You can't buy a car on Sunday still. So we still have parts of blue laws. I like that question there. We're going to come back to that, definitely. Unequal land distribution, natural resources. We're going to be taking a look at that. Led to different things, population densities. We're going to be taking a look at different careers, things like that, based on natural resources. Primogeniture, which is the concept that the eldest son got everything. And we're going to talk about how that encourages immigration as well. Hopefully I sound good and everything is working well. You know, we always have to kind of go and do a little, kind of what we've learned so far, right? So you know that the first in exploration, Spain and Portugal, this is all period one. So Spain and Portugal led the way. England was kind of on the sideline. Do you think they liked that? Okay. Will made a point there. They're going to be talking about slavery even more tomorrow. England didn't like that. Especially England didn't like that because the Protestant Reformation had happened, and there's a natural competition now between Spain and England. And so we have that going on. We have groups coming here that felt persecuted. Anybody know the story of John Howland, which is kind of just an interesting story there? He was one of the pilgrims in. He fell overboard there and he was rescued. Several people wouldn't have never been born. His direct descendants included FDR and both Bushes. So if John Howland, it would have definitely had a huge change. There are tons of people, I think 1,200 people in the John Howland Society. Just a little interesting story there that I wanted to throw in. And then we have Spain kind of losing power and England growing in power with the loss of the Spain's invincible Spanish Armada. And again, Sir Francis Drake there, he's plundering various places. You can see up in this corner here, his attack on St. Augustine brought in a lot of money into England, and they really wanted to get further into the colonies. All right. Quotes. I decided to start off all three sections with some form of quotes. Okay, so I just took these. I don't know if anybody's ever seen these little brainy quotes there. I just took them from there. And so I don't know, I'm attributing it. So hopefully they won't be mad. It's a little shout out to brainyquotes.com. But here's the one that I think starts off the South really good here. So this is from Brian Stevenson, who is a civil rights advocate here. He has the great evil of American slavery was involuntary servitude of forced labor. I really believe that the true evil of American slavery was a narrative of racial differences that we created to justify it. So, what we're doing here is we're taking a look at, one of the factors there that the South was built on, and unfortunately it was built on slavery. So we'll be taking a look at how that affects things as we move on. So, anything else you can infer from this quote here? Okay, I always kind of ask that question with each one of these. So what we're doing is we are, just kind of we're going to take a look at the South first. Peyton, very good. Slavery was one of the main reasons for the racial divide in the U.S. Will said the country was founded on a fault line. I love that that analogy there, Will. That is excellent here. I'm going to steal that there in my lessons there. I like that. Very good. What slavery was grounded in racism from the start. That's definite. And slavery created racism. And so, okay, we're going to be taking a look at that. Thank you, everyone. Institutional racism. Oh, definitely. All right, so we're going to be taking a look at all those. Nice inferences here from everybody out there. Thank you. All right. So we're going to have the same order for all of these here. You'll notice that we're going with the same order here, how we're going to look at each one here. So the southern colonies, the settling, really starts off, when we talk about the southern colonies, most people put it from Maryland down through Georgia. Okay. Florida, of course, isn't in there. Why? Why is Florida not in there? Right. Spanish colony. Very good. All right. So that's what most people consider the South there. Maryland on down south. They all had some forms of slavery there. All right. So mostly English, the people who settled in the South. Okay. You had Jamestown were mostly gentlemen. We talked a lot about this in my APUSH class here. They're just not used to working. This is, people who are not hard workers. They are hardly workers. And so they are kind of thrust into this, real tough wilderness here. And it's going to be a lot of mess in the beginning there, right? Who made the Work or Starve program? Do you remember that in Jamestown? Everybody hopefully got there, I think, by now. John Smith, right. So, John Smith really goes from the outhouse to the penthouse there in Jamestown, even though there's really no real penthouse there in the conditions they were living at. But he was actually, kind of put in a prison on the ship there on the way for starting a mutiny. And eventually he is going to take over. And there is going to be more of an emphasis on working to survive. I mean, they have to survive. I'm seeing Rob's there. Yeah, that's what they were all interested in, gold. And they wanted to have all this wealth like what was coming into Spain. And but the problem is that they can't survive unless people start doing some work and building forts and helping with all that stuff. We have a lot of English aristocrats coming over. Again, what is the reason? The big reason is the concept that the oldest son gets everything. So if you are the second, third, fourth son, whatever it is, you're just kind of out of luck in terms of land. So this is an opportunity for you to do that. Indentured servants were the original people. Anybody know what happened that made people afraid of indentured servants? Because the indentured servants did a revolt, a rebellion. Very good. Bacon's Rebellion. Okay, bacon, bacon, bacon. I always think of that dog food commercial. Bacon, bacon, bacon. Right. Okay. We love some bacon. People are pretty crazy about bacon. They put bacon on everything. But where they put everything on bacon nowadays. But Bacon, very big figure. And what he did is inadvertently, I think, they were upset that the land was kind of rough, that they were getting this backcountry land that a lot of times the natives were in. And a lot of times it was causing a tremendous amount of fights between them and the natives. And eventually slavery winds up coming the next year, and the first slaves arrive in Jamestown in 1619. Okay, I don't want to go into too many of Will's things for tomorrow there, but so we're going to go into some of the things. So here's the geography of the South. We're talking about Maryland to Georgia, rich, fertile soil, coastal plains. I love this. You're going to hear a lot about tidewater gentry. Okay, this picture up in the upper right-hand corner really kind of shows you the lush vegetation in the areas kind of close to the Atlantic, the tidewater gentry. So you have your Appalachian Mountains. I don't know if any of you have ever driven out, to Florida or to the Carolinas or anything, but you'll notice, or if you're from that area there, very green, as you get towards the coast. That was the ideal land. That's where the big plantations are. That's where the easiest farming is. That is where the money is made. So they refer to them as the tidewater gentry. Okay, when you get further west here, that's the Appalachian Mountains, Highlands, Blue Ridge Mountains, places like that. And a lot of those, now today, a lot of these places have become very scenic, and a lot of people love them. But at one time, they were pretty rugged. It was kind of hard to farm there. The soil was a combination of clay, silt, sand, very hard to grow. There was a tremendous amount of economic disparity there, Rob. The people who lived, the tidewater gentry, the people who lived, closer to the coast, actually, do we still have elements of this today? Right? Where's the most expensive land, right? The coastal land, even today, right? You can buy, someplace in inland Florida, for a lot cheaper than you could buy, some oceanfront property in Miami, for instance, right? So, in terms of it, there's still elements of that today. I went to South Carolina. I went to Myrtle Beach last year, and you could see this disparity on our drive there, going through places like West Virginia and some of the places in North Carolina and South Carolina, and there's still a lot of poverty in the Appalachian Hills and things like that. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, really, what is where land is? What is it all tied to? From Peyton's comment there, it's all tied to the ice ages, right? I live here in Illinois, and if you've ever traveled through Illinois, there's a tremendous amount of farming. We got lucky in terms of the soil with the ice ages. We had 4 ice ages here. The last one left us, outside of Chicago. I'm in the south suburb of Chicago there. And, we got really lucky in Illinois in terms of excellent farmland. It's just the way when the glaciers receded, what it left us. Other places weren't as lucky or fortunate. So, yeah, prehistoric events, really. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good, thought there. The South is mostly agrarian, cash crops. What we mean by cash crops, I remember being a kid and, not really understanding what cash crops, the teachers up there, 3rd, 4th grade, talking about cash crops, and I never really raised my hand to ask what they were really talking about. And cash crops just mean things that are mostly commercial. They are not grown to live or they're not like subsistence farmers. They are things that are meant to be sold in commercial markets. So tobacco, cotton later on, indigo, rice, things like that. All right, Victoria, are you in Chicago as well? Or are you just doing a little shout out to Chicago? Yep, okay, good. All right, excellent. Okay, you know where Oak Lawn is there, Victoria? No, okay. Very near, Omar, very near southwest suburb. So Oak Lawn, other ones around here, Burbank, Evergreen Park, places like that. Orland Park. Okay, you're in the northwest suburbs. Okay, probably like by Arlington Heights or something like that. Okay. Okay, so you're just the southwest suburb. You're a northwest. This is the southwest suburb here of Chicago. All right, let's take a look here at our next one here. So again, now we're going to go into the economy. Okay, so I always like to play a little music every once in a while. Now this is, I don't know if we're going to be able to hear it here. Okay. Okay, there's a little Pink Floyd and a song Money. Okay, this is from YouTube. I'm going to give everybody credit there. YouTube, Pink Floyd, Money. Okay, so we're going to be taking a look at money. All right, so we have largely an agrarian society. Okay, and thank you, Omar, there. Money. Okay, we have labor-intensive industries. We have, so that's a key part there, labor-intensive. Tobacco, rice, indigo, all things we've talked about. Cotton, not until the 1800s. So that's something a lot of people don't realize there. Little industry in the South. It's not really until after the Civil War and kind of a new South emerges that you're going to start getting some larger, cities like Atlanta and places like that really start getting some industry, and then you're going to start seeing a shift there when we get to the 20th century where more and more job opportunities, especially after World War II, start to be in the South. But at one time, there was barely any industry in the South whatsoever, except for the agrarian industries there. And then we have, they lacked specialized crafts. We have indentured servitude was the big thing until Bacon's Rebellion. Then people got nervous of them. Also didn't like their demands, and they kept feeling like they were losing land to a lot of these servants there that they had agreed to. And then you have a big gap between rich and poor, especially with this tidewater gentry and more of the backcountry farmer. All right, let's look into the next one here. All right, governments. What are the biggest parts there when it comes to government? So they separated into mostly counties. Lots of places have counties, how big they are. Illinois has counties, townships, you name it. We have lots of different forms of smaller governments there. There's normally a governor in the southern colonies. Okay, some of them became very unpopular, like Berkeley did. That's he's going to be chased around by Nathaniel Bacon. Self-government, the roots of self-government really come out here. And the House of Burgesses is the first legislative body in the United States. So the first legislative body in the United States is the House of Burgesses. And very important to realize that the history of self-government and legislative bodies has been a long history here. So what are you starting to see? A separation from who? Who are you starting to see? What are you starting to see? Right. You're starting to see that separation come in. Oh, separation of church and state. Well, again, in the southern colonies, it's more about the money. And we'll talk more about the religion there later on. Let me see what Sophia had to say. But I'm just wondering if anyone knows responsible for knowing information about South America and Canada during the age of expiration on the exam. Okay. Yes. I would say that in terms of what you need to know, you really need to know where the Spanish went, and you're going to have to know about the English in Canada as well. So, yeah, I would say South America, Central America, and Canada are all part of it, definitely, Sophia. Are there going to be a ton of questions on it? No. You will probably have maybe one or two multiple choice questions that kind of go with the Spanish Empire or things that may relate to situations there. Okay, good question there. All right, yes, in the House of Burgesses, it would have been mostly, it would have been landowners, yes. And in terms of it, how opened up it was to everybody, I don't think it would have been, although there is some diversity, it would have been white males that would have done it. You wouldn't have seen females in there or minority groups too. Established church in the South. The majority of people would have been from the Church of England. And we're going to be taking a look at it because we know that one of the places in the South is made for Catholics. Which one is that one? Okay, Maryland, good. Okay, Maryland, right? And there's the act of what? That kind of protects all Christians, leaving out, of course, Jews and Muslims. Anybody know what that act is called? All right, nice job. All right, so you're doing great. I'm loving this. This is fun. Okay, this is better. The first time I did it, I stared into the screen for like 30 seconds because I forgot how to share. So I think things are okay right now. All right, so yeah. Then did you see it at like the replay? I'm like so embarrassed about that it's still there. It's going to be there forever. Me just staring into the screen there. All right, let's continue on there. All right, and then the last one that we're going to be taking a look at is the Southern Colonies Society. Okay, so what it really is it's like the feudal system in Europe there. That's really what it's like here. You have the large landowners on top there. You have the small farmers below them. You have the landless whites below them, the indentured servants below them, and then the slaves at the bottom of the Southern society there. Again, most people were Church of England. Women normally tended the plantations and the farms. all of those things there. Education was probably mostly for the wealthy, and when they did it, they often had a tutor. I am going to have to speed up a little bit because we haven't even gotten to the northern colonies here. So we're going to start off with the northern colonies. Look at this quote here. In the early days of New England colonies, no more embarrassing or hampering condition, no greater temporal ill could befall any adult Puritan than to be unmarried. Okay. So this is a historian from the 1800s there. What can you infer from this quote? This gets us started here on the northern colonies here. Again, this is from Brainy quote. Marriage is important. Family was valued. Very good. All right. So that is that's the big concept there. The idea of family. All right. So let's take a look here. And we have the northern colonies, mostly English. They were Puritans and Pilgrims. Does everybody understand the difference? Puritans are like a fix from within. Pilgrims are people who wanted to separate. So that's really where the big change is in terms of dress and a lot of things, somewhat similar. Searching for religious freedom. Okay, what's kind of ironic about that searching for religious freedom? They establish a what? Anybody know? Word with a T. Okay, we're up to 91. Good. Theocracy, good. And do they allow for freedom of worship? They were not as tolerant. So, they didn't like that, that there wasn't enough tolerance of them and their beliefs, but then they didn't put it for other people. I guess, you would say, that, I don't know, that's some form of humans, I guess, that at times humans, when they get the power, they're not always, as nice with it as you would think that they would be. Quick little story. I play this game, Star Power. Has anybody ever heard of it? Okay, Star Power. I have some of my students on here, so I can't tell you too much. But one of the things that Star Power teaches you is that you have the ability to abuse power when you have it. It's actually a business game. I learned it in grad school, and the professor actually used it at a Mercedes plant back maybe 15, 20 years ago, and a giant fist fight between management broke out, and all because of this game. So it was kind of somewhat ironic. I used it a few years ago, and one girl who actually was under a dictatorship. So most of the class wasn't, most of them were from the suburbs, but one person who escaped a horrible situation and couldn't stand her dictator, she wound up gaining power in the class and kind of becoming a small dictator in the class. So yes, Omar, we can play it, but she was so embarrassed when I pointed it out to her, like how cruel her laws were. And yeah, she was so embarrassed by it. She was like, oh my gosh, I'm a dictator. But anyways, just a little analogy, I guess, with it. So we will definitely play it, though. Great game. I can't tell you too much about it because I will ruin the game. All right, Northern Colonies geography here. So where are we talking about here? We are talking about Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut. What can you guess on it? Pretty long winters, poor soil, definitely rocky. So it's gonna be, kind of hard work. Great seaports, which is great for trade. That's why a place like Boston becomes such a big city and so important. Hilly and limited farming. They're not going to have giant farms there. So it's just not going to happen. How is everyone doing so far? Are you learning a lot? We going through a lot of things here? Okay, good. Good. All right. So that's the goal here. All right. Now this is going to be kind of silly here. All right. The reason why I put that in there is they are not a one-trick pony. They are not a one-trick pony. That's why I put that. The South, they're a one-trick pony. They're all agriculture. Okay, they're all agriculture. One-trick pony is not a great idea there. Okay, sure. Draymond, let me take a look at how a bit clearer on poor soil affects the economy in history. Yes. Okay. So because the soil is so poor, let's go back to that there. You know that you're not going to have these giant plantations. You're going to have smaller farms. Okay, and you're just not. It's just not the way they're going to be split up. The farming is going to be hard work. So not everybody's going to go into it. They're going to take advantage of some of the other things that are also around there. So in general, the farm is going to be, in a lot of ways, they're like subsistence farmers. People like John Adams had farms, small farms. But was that John Adams, was that his only career? Anybody know what else John Adams was? Right. He was an incredible lawyer. Okay, so you know, he was a very famous lawyer, had a very famous law practice. So what my point of it is that the soil, you're not going to become a wealthy plantation owner in the North. The land just stinks. It takes a lot of work. A lot of times the whole family would be involved with this work. So other industries are going to spring up. Things like lumber industry, definitely going to be big. There's going to be abundant forest. There's going to be great ports for trade. Fur trade is going to be a big one. So people are not going to be like the South where they're just kind of farmers. Additionally, the growing season is going to be long or short in the North. What do you think? Short. Okay, it's going to be short. So, you know, you're going to spend a lot of time where you're not farming. There's going to be a lot of winter, and there's going to be other economic opportunities there during that. Okay. Okay, again, not a one-trick. Oh, it just keeps wanting to go there over and over. Put that little. All right. Northern colonies and the government. Okay, really based on religion is what the big thing is. It is a theocracy. Okay, self-government flourishes. Okay, Mayflower Compact, Fundamental Orders of Connecticut. Those are a couple of big documents that, you know, especially the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut, you know, that is like a real beginning of our constitutional history. The Mayflower Compact is people getting together and making some rules to obey. So in a way, that also is putting us on that track towards self-government and constitutional government. Anybody ever see the English Constitution? Trick question. Anybody? No? All right, trick question, because there is not one English Constitution. The English Constitution is made up of the Magna Carta, the English Bill of Rights, and all these different documents. Oh, good. Glad you like the lights there. I thought you were talking like all of a sudden the sun has come in and my blinds are on the other side. But yeah, it can change color and everything. I have it green here because we are the Spartans, kind of green and white like Michigan State. Let's see, town meetings. That is a huge one there. So town meetings, that is a big one there. And people could speak out. I mean, you couldn't get a more democratic system. Has anybody ever watched it on, like, I don't know if you have like Comcast or anything. I have cut the cord, but If you have that, maybe your local town government meetings are there. And that's kind of interesting there to kind of see. And, people can kind of speak out and influence things on a local level. We know that sometimes, right, we talked about superstition, the Salem witch trials, and a lot of people were executed, 20 in total in the summer of 1692. All right, let's take a look at the Northern Society there. Major cities, some wealth in that cities, more wealth. Some people could even take a look at those Salem witch trials and talk about the disparity there and what happened there. Religion, the Puritans very strict, superstitious. Women had large families. They tended to the farms. Education is important for both boys and girls. What do they want them to be able to read? Yeah, I like all your, the different things here that people are putting in there. Very good. The Bible. Okay, they want them to be educated enough to read the Bible and do an excellent job of analyzing and looking at that. So that was a big part of their faith. All right, now we're going to switch gears here to the most diverse of our 3 colonial regions there. And I will do, there's so much here. I will do a big kind of backtrack and make sure that we have some of these differences there again. Let's take a look here. This is from a historian in the early 1900s here. In some of the middle colonies, the towns and countries were both active and had relation with each other, which was the forerunner of the present system of local government in Western states. So what can you infer from that? That there was a lot of what in the middle colonies? What do you think? Sure, I can definitely post the link to the slides, definitely. And if you have Fiveable Plus, I believe you can watch this whole thing anytime. You can take me with you. Okay. All right. So war, trade. Okay. All good thoughts there. Trade, definitely. Trade, definitely. War is going to be part of things. There's no doubt about it, as these colonies especially push further west, right? And because the natives are going to, be kind of driven off the eastern lands. And then as the colonists continue to move west, there's going to be more and more Indian wars. There's no doubt about it during that time. So that's a good one too. But with the quote there, what they're referring to is more along the lines of self-government. That's going to be coming up. So more government institutions, things like that. So let's take a look here. The middle colonies there, okay, are more diverse. I don't know. That's the only picture I could find on diversity that was free in the thing I was looking at. I don't know. It's diversity in shoes. I'm not really sure. I guess all different color shoes. I'm not sure, but there's more diversity there, definitely. We have the Quakers. Jeremiah, what do you want about Joe? What do you want on that one? Can you go over Joe? I think I don't know that. Maybe that's an acronym that I'm not familiar with. Every once in a while something gets past you and you're like, oh, never thought of that. Okay, all right. All right, well, okay, thank you, Joe. All right, thank you, Jeremiah. All right, now, so let's take a look here. So more diversity. We have Quakers, we have the Dutch, we have the French, Germans, Scots, Irish. So those are all groups there. So there is more diversity definitely in there. Okay, let's take a look here. All right, next one here. All right, middle colonies. Let's take a look at the geography of the middle colonies. All right, so you have New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware. We have geography, favored conditions for farmers. We have fertile soil, large rivers, wide valleys, warmer than New England, so um, a larger growing season, no doubt about it. Okay. You can kind of see some of the pictures there from there. Okay. So you can see this is really kind of considered a breadbasket of the area there. Economy. Okay. In terms of the economy here. So we have a lot of small farms. We have a lot of grains making money there, making money in grains. We have cash crops, definitely mining industry. So what do you notice? What word would you say about the economy? One word with a D, I think, would, really for the middle colonies in general, kind of sum this up. What do you think? Okay, this is different than the South as well, right? Okay, okay, diverse, right, right. Okay, so diverse, a lot of different, okay, a lot of different bread, right? The bread basket of the country there. Now that's better, Jeremiah. I like that better, okay, than Mama jokes. Okay, so my mom is a real nice lady. So, anyways, and maybe she might even be watching. All right, now we have industry, lumber. We have iron workers, slave trade, large production of breadbasket, farms, wheat, corn, cattle, pigs, lots of different things there. Mass produced a lot of food. Eventually, it's going to go into some industries, markets. We know that it's considered the breadbasket of it. All right. Let's continue on here. Government in the middle colonies. So as we kind of talked about, self-government. Good. We're up to 101. Good. I like that. Okay. Maybe that last one might have been my mom. She just doing it now. Self-government traditions, mixture of town meetings and county governments there, and tolerance of diverse cultures. Melting pot begins. Now, that's, I put that in there, and when I put it in there, that really was the way things were. Now today, there's a lot of talk of melting pot versus salad bowl and all those things. That concept that the melting pot makes people lose who they were, and I would think probably at that time they did kind of lose in some ways where they were. So some of their cultural traditions, things like that. No one group dominated religiously. A lot of different religions here, which we're about to get into in 1 second there. So let's take a look here at some of the social structure. So let's take a look here. So very diverse, as we talked about. We have Quakers. Now, Quakers were somewhat controversial at the time. Why were they controversial? Okay, well, a couple things here. They really got into their particular ceremonies, and they would, kind of get swept away. Okay, so I believe Quaker was more of like a nickname. All right, more of a nickname. And so that was kind of part of it there. Okay, so a nickname there. Okay, hi, Katie. Okay, learning a little bit of middle colonies. All right. And so the Quakers, it was kind of like a nickname. They get so swept away. And to an outsider, you'd say, it's like some kind of quake going on. Additionally, their controversy was that they were pacifists. They wouldn't do military service. And when a group won't do military service, what do they look like? Okay, traitors, cowards, okay, dweebs. Okay, dweebs. Is dweeb still, is that used? It's dream use. All right. Okay. Traitors, dreams, cowards. Yeah, they were looked at as unpatriotic, right? Unpatriotic. Somebody who, would not be their bone spurs. People who, wouldn't really kind of fight for their group there. So that's the way they were kind of looked at there. And it is, somebody talked about the American Revolution. It was a long time to get Quakers involved. If you've ever read the book John Adams or seen the series that HBO had, they did a lot with, getting them involved was a huge part. All right, let's do a little review here of where we are here. All right, so what do all these places have in common? They all had some form of agriculture, right? They all had some cooperation from Native Americans. They all had some wars with Native Americans. They all had some forms of indentured servitude. They all had some trade. They needed things from elsewhere. And they all had reasons for coming here, things that were pulling them to America, whether it was religion. Okay, Penn's letter to Indians, excellent. That is Penn's holy experiment there, and giving a place for these Quakers was very good for that. We all had some factors that brought them. So is everybody good on the similarities there? So they were mostly English. We know that the middle colonies had more diversity, right? Yes, I will definitely put some way to get these slides, definitely. Differences. Chesapeake slavery, you had South, greater disparity, rich and poor. You had higher population density in the North. These are the differences here. North was more about religion. New England was all about the family. You have ethnic diversity. You have, in the middle colonies, you had healthy and more stable in the North, greater economic, remember, not one-trick ponies like the South. You had the House of Burgesses, you had versus town halls, but all of them had some forms of self-government, definitely. Reasons for the differences: more demand for labor in the South, so that led to slavery. We had unequal distribution of wealth in the South. You had natural resources differences, like the middle colonies had mining. Places like, today, if you think about it here, mining in Pennsylvania and different places. Was Chesapeake slavery different compared? Excellent question there on that one. Yes, the Deep South, as you're going to be learning about, is a more, God, yeah, I'm trying to watch the wording here. Trying to do my best with kind of a difficult question in a way. Slavery in the South was more widespread in the Deep South, and it was more cruel in the Deep South, in Georgia, and then later on in Alabama and everything. Why was it even more cruel? It's cruel no matter what, okay, the whole idea. But in the South, in the Deep South, the white slave owners were more worried because they were outnumbered by the slaves at some places, could be 10-1. And so, they tried to grab control. So the, whippings and things like that would happen more in the Deep South than probably, maybe a Maryland or a Chesapeake. Now, does that mean that it didn't happen in those places? No, but they were less worried about losing control in those places where slaves did not outnumber them. Like I said, potentially 10-1 in some counties in Mississippi and places like that. So does that make sense what I explained there? I hope I put that in. I mean, slavery, horrible everywhere, but even more cruel and humiliating and all those things in the Deep South. Oh, we're almost done here. So let me get, okay, let's get to that was our last slide. Good. All right, I'm going to we're going to go back to here. Okay. Oh, okay. And let me get for you right now. Let me get off of the, and I can now share it with you because a lot of people asked for that. So let's get that on there. I hope you're still there. Are you still there? Okay. Here we go. Paste it. Are you still there? Okay. How you doing there? All right. So, all right, good. I'm glad. All right. So that's what we're here at Fiveable for. And, you know, I will have some more reviews coming up here. And you know what? If anybody, add me on Twitter there. If you remember that first, it's add DiFilippo APUSH there. If, you know, if you have anything, any lessons that you want me to put in there, I can create those and get people doing those lessons. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right. All right. Thank you.